Well, hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, and not just a run-of-the-mill, ordinary edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. No. Tonight is the very first podcast of 2022. It is January 6th. 2022, we are ringing in the new year of wrestling, folks, all together with the premier destination for wrestling chit-chat on the Thursday night, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Like, that's the premier place right there. I'm really glad that you guys are here. I'm glad that you're tuning in live, that you're listening to this on demand or on your own favorite podcast application. To ring in the new year with me, I really appreciate it. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone who has stuck around all this time. I am still boggled by the fact that people do listen to this, and more people are and seem to enjoy it, and that's wild to me. And I sincerely appreciate it, and I sincerely appreciate you taking time out of your day to just listen to me talk about pro wrestling for the next few minutes or so. Thank you so much. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, and I am glad that we've got a live crowd once again here tonight joining us en direct. Got Kelly Tonjes. Hi, Kelly, who's here again. Happy New Year, and Robert Larry as well. They're always there from the start, from the get-go, before anyone else gets here. This is where they're at. Kelly, Robert, boom. Nice to see you both. Happy New Year to you both. We've got our boy Ben, Phantomark82, who's here as well. Nice to see you. Heather, hello and welcome. Nice to see you too. Justin Firestein as well. It's great to have everyone here. J.S. Brown is here too. Happy New Year too. Just a good time. It warms my heart, and I'm just really happy to see everyone hanging out here tonight. And if you're already here and you feel like it, you feel like a good way to kick in the new year would be to leave a like on Warren's video. Well, hey, go ahead and do it and leave a like on Warren's video, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on demand. It's fantastic. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, thank you, by the way. Then why don't you leave a review? Leave a 5-star thing. You can leave 5 stars on Spotify now. You can leave the 5-star reviews, of course, on Apple Podcast as well. And here's something. If you're watching or if you're listening to this on Spotify right now, you can flip over to the video. The video version of the podcast, what I essentially record live, is also available on Spotify as well. So you can flip between both. You can see my face on Spotify. There are premier recording artists who put out albums, records, discs, who put out entire albums on Spotify, like Drake and Ariana Grande, and you can't see them as they're singing, but you can see me doing my thing right now on Spotify. Isn't that just wild? I know that's where the future is, folks. Trust me, it's exactly where the future is. But thank you in advance for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you so much. Yes, and Bad Bunny as well. WWE superstar. Bad Bunny, indeed, chat, is also there. So thank you, Ben. You know, I also appreciate all the support that you guys show for Bell to Bells, of course, belltobells.com, Women's Wrestling Wire, passion project, something that I love doing with Kristen Ashley, who is the editor-in-chief of Bell to Bells and also the editor-in-chief of My Heart. It's a fantastic passion project, and I appreciate everyone supporting it. belltobells.com, twitter.com/belltobells, youtube.com/belltobells. How do you spell Bell to Bells? If you haven't figured it out by now, you must be new here. BELLTOBELLES.com. And you know what we're doing right now? We are currently releasing day by day our list of top 500 female wrestlers, women wrestlers of 2021. And we're releasing them by batches of 100 over the next few days. We're getting great responses for it. People have been saying, you cannot make a 500 list of women wrestlers. There are not even 500 women wrestlers. And we're like, oh yeah, bet. And we took it, and we have a great list, and we're sharing it out there on twitter.com/bell-to-bells. Go check it out. It's fantastic. It's really, really cool, and I really dig it. So there we go. I did some Wrestle Kingdom post shows over the past couple of days. My sleep schedule is completely thrown off, but it was worth it, especially for night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. I'll talk about Wrestle Kingdom probably a little later, but go check those out. If you haven't watched the shows, you're not quite sure, or whatever, you just want to hear someone's opinion. I was joined by Lord Mags, my buddy, chum, pal, comrade. He jumped in, came and reviewed both nights of Wrestle Kingdom with me. And I appreciate him a great deal for doing that. Thank you again so much, Magsy. I know you're out there. So we have complete breakdowns of both nights, night 1, night 2, individually. Go check those out. I'll talk about Wrestle Kingdom in a little bit. So, but take the time to go watch those. They were a lot of fun to do. I get it. I always have a good time with Mags. It's fantastic. And now there's the final night of Wrestle Kingdom, or look, what I like to call, very, very simply, the New Japan Noah crossover show, which is happening this Saturday. And yes, I'm doing a post show for that as well. And I'm going to be joined by Kevin McElvany, editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated this time around, to come and break down the action once we're done immediately after the show. So like 7 a.m. Eastern, something like that. I don't know what time it's going to happen, but once it's done, then Kevin and I will pop in. Excited to have Kevin on the show. Great guy, good brain for wrestling. I'm excited to talk with him about the show. I'm not going to talk to him, talk with him. So that's fantastic. Don't forget, folks, there's also a Discord, MrWarrenHayes Discord. Wrestling talk all the time. And we do talk a lot about wrestling, but there's off-topic channels as well. Lots of Marvel Cinematic Universe fans out there. Video game aficionados as well. We have a channel dedicated entirely to food and drink. So, even if you're like, I don't necessarily feel like talking about wrestling today, maybe you'd like to share with us your most recent recipe of kakuva, for instance. Oh, come on over and show us, and then we'll be like, wow, that looks fantastic. That kind of stuff. It'll be great. So thank you. Come and join us. Link is in the description. The bot is also going to roll around and do stuff as well. Don't forget to also join us for the post stream after we're done here. It's for members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, so become a member if you want to join the post stream. What do we do on the post stream? Well, we sit around and we talk to each other. Talk with people in the chat, take Discord calls. Tonight, Match of the Years. That's what we're talking about. That's what I want to hear. That's what the members are coming in with, their Match of the Years. Top 3, the ones that really made them tremble to their core throughout 2021. So if you're a member, you want to come talk about the best matches that you saw over 2021, become a member, come and join us. Plus, you get nifty little badges if you come live. I've released brand new membership badges on top of that. Plus, you get exclusive emojis. Look, if you're a live viewer, I think it's a good deal. And look, we're at the start of the year. We're at the beginning of a month of the year. I think it's a good time to try it out. You try it out for the month, and if you like it, you renew. If not, that's cool. Good, but because the way I see it, the more the merrier. That's how I see it. And you can also show a little support by dropping a super chat, and I will read your question and or comment live and on the air. Got a bunch of people joining us in the chat. Thomas Gories, nice to see you, Thomas. Good to see you. Supersonic X, ooh, nice to see you as well. Hey, we got Katie from the Shalit Showcase. Nice to see you. Hope you have a good show tonight as well. Thank you very much for popping in. And Ray Clark. Nice to see you, Ray Clark, who just dropped in. 2021 resolutions, right? This is the time of year that we think about what we can do to improve and better ourselves, challenge ourselves, so on and so forth. So I have I set up a little list of resolutions like I think everyone else does, formally or informally. There's at least some targets that you set for yourself, right? And as far as and I'm Security Knox, nice to see you as well. And as far as resolutions go, well, I have a few in regards to wrestling. I want to watch more Japanese wrestling. I want to get into Noah more this year. I want to dive deeper into Joshi. I want to get Stardom, Tokyo Joshi Pro. Those are my main focuses. That's what I want to get much more into this year. I want to continue supporting independent wrestling in North America as well. I want to do it more on the show. But mostly, there's one thing that I'm really putting myself out there. I'm absolutely putting myself out there. Going to try my best to do. There's one thing that I absolutely want to do, and that is to try and change my attitude towards one Bill Goldberg. So my challenge here, my resolution, is that I'm going to try to say one nice thing about Bill Goldberg every week on this show. That's what I'm going to do. So essentially, and I'm going to premiere it tonight. We're going to start doing it right now. A little segment that I'm going to like to call 52 Nice Things About Bill Goldberg. MrWarrenHayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg. Bald is a good look for Bill Goldberg. MrWarrenHayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg. There we go. That's how we're kicking it off. Bill Goldberg. Before we get to the weekly wrestling inspection proper, we got some sad news today that Shozo Strong Kobayashi passed away at the age of 81 years old. Shozo Kobayashi is He's a fairly important figure in the history of Japanese professional wrestling. He began his career in 1967, wrestling for the IWE, the International Wrestling Enterprises Group that had predated All Japan and New Japan. This is a guy who fought tons of people. He fought Andre the Giant, for instance, in a 37-minute best 2 out of 3 falls at the World Series tournament, which was basically the IWE's, I guess, big tournament of the year. They're like their G1, and I'm doing like major quotes here, but yeah, in 1972 he did that. He also wrestled in North America quite a bit in the AWA as Strong Kobayashi, because the IWA and AWA had a working relationship, and he was IWA champion until November 3rd, 1973. Wait a second. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Until 1973. I got confused on a date here. But yeah, until 1973, when he jumped to a fairly new wrestling promotion that had been started up by a gentleman named Antonio Inoki. Might have heard of the promotion called New Japan Pro Wrestling. Inoki was NWF champion at the time. The NWF, the National Wrestling Federation, I think it was Pedro Morales's promotion back in the day. And Kobayashi, who had never lost the IWA belt, had built a massive feud for like December in 1974, which they held at the old Sumo Hall, and at the time was the biggest event in New Japan's history. It drew like 16,000 people at the gate and a 20% TV rating on top of that. It was a big time stuff. Kobayashi was always one of the top guys in New Japan. Fought every great name that wrestled in the 70s and early 80s. Andre the Giant, Stan Hansen, Fujinami, Tiger Jeet Singh, and a young and up and comer named Hulk Hogan as well. He retired from pro wrestling in 1984. Came back in the 90s for a one-off, a tag match for New Japan Pro Wrestling's 20th year celebration, and has been pretty much removed from the limelight from that point moving forward. So condolences go out to his loved ones, his family, and everyone who survives him. Shozo Kobayashi passed away at the age of 81. Again, just before we get into the to the inspection, there's a little thing that happened on December 31st, 2021. It was, look, a couple of weeks ago we had found out, we had learned that that Big Swole's AEW contract was not going to be renewed. It was a mutual understanding between her and the company, and everything was fine. Last week, Swole released an episode of her podcast where basically she ran down her AEW experience, which was overall positive. She putting over a lot of aspects in the company while also offering some slight criticism, reasons why she left. She just wanted to put that out there. And some criticism on how the company could do better, and offering up some ideas, some solutions, some thoughts. Wrestling outlets picked up quotes from the podcast, and there was much inflammation, I guess you'd say, online, despite the fact that she was extremely level-headed, right, and overall very complimentary of her experience there. Quotes generally have a tendency to do that. They get people angry because they're typically there's a lot of context sometimes that's lost, and this led to Tony Khan of AEW Wrestling to tweet the following on December 31st. The two top AEW executives are Brown, me, and Mega. Jade, Bowens, Caster, Dante, Nyla, Isaiah, and Mark Quinn all won on TV this month. The TBS title tournament has been very, very diverse. I let Swole's contract expire as I felt her wrestling wasn't good enough. AEW Rampage Street Fight tonight. Swole spoke, of course, a lot about the diversity issue, which is one which is very, very, which is very much in the forefront of a lot of discussions amongst wrestling fans, so Tony Khan decided to tweet this out, and he basically quote-tweeting an article, a Fightful article that had used that had the quotes, so on and so forth. So I don't know how much Tony actually listened to the podcast or was just feeding off these quotes or whatever, but it was a very, very strange quote that ignited a lot of discussion, a lot of debate on top of that. And I wanted to talk about it, but I also wanted to talk about it in a way that made sense to me. Me, myself, 47-year-old white male, talking about diversity issues and promoting them might come across as a little strange. So since I needed to talk about this, I decided to reach out to a colleague, a pal, and invite them on to chat. So I was able to record a segment earlier this week with Jaychelle Nicole, who is managing editor at bodyslam.net. She was gracious enough to give me some time so we could chat about this discussion, so I could pick her brain and get perspective from someone who is very, very involved, very, very concerned by all these discussions here. And I'm going to share it with you right now, my discussion with Jaychelle Nicole, managing editor of bodyslam.net. So ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very happy to be joined right now by bodyslam.net co-managing editor Jaychelle Nicole, who's joining me right now. How are you doing, Jaychelle?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk about such an important issue as well. So,
well, because it is, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to pop on and record this little segment with me, because I do think that it warrants a little conversation. And let's go back to the tweet, right? The one that ended the year on such a high note. The one that, of course, Tony Khan put out. From my perspective, right? I read the tweet and I'm like, I look at it and I say, what an unprofessional tweet, right? Just going out there saying the things that he did, and especially, being just flat out saying, oh, my former employee just wasn't any good. There was something extremely unprofessional about it.
Yeah.
Especially coming from a CEO, president of a company. What was your first reaction when you saw it?
My first reaction was, I'm having a panic attack.
Oh, okay.
Literally, I had a breakdown. Especially, okay, I released an article right around when Swole left AEW that kind of introduced me to Swole in real life. So like me and her actually are pretty close now. So specifically to see that message, I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm supposed to react to this. But the first thing I thought was this was a microaggression. It seemed like people have described it as unprofessional, like you said. But I also feel like if you dig a little bit deeper, there has to be some reason he's feeling this way that is beyond just the comments that she made or anything like that. And when I first read it, I was like, this isn't a real tweet. This isn't real at all. And I was looking at tweets originally just because the article had been released. I was on the podcast when she was recording it. Like I was literally in the call-in app with her. Like I talked with her on the podcast also. So I was like, oh, people aren't going to misconstrue her words. If they listen to it, that was me being reasonable. People are not always reasonable. I was expecting them to just be like, okay, this is a constructive criticism that a former employee is giving to an employer. Will actually made this correlation on Grapsity of former employers leaving reviews on like a Glassdoor or an Indeed or something like that, where the employers don't normally respond. But this is social media. So the employer actually has access to these records. And people were saying that it's fair to respond because it was a public comment made by Swole. Well, people don't normally respond. If you look at the WWE, no matter how good or bad they are, they don't respond to things like this. And I'm wondering what made it okay for him to think that it was fine to respond to this, especially in that way. And the fact that he hasn't released an apology by now is extremely scary. We've seen the messages that Swole has received recently, like death threats and all of those things, and it's extremely scary. And that's only being encouraged by the fact that he hasn't apologized or mentioned it, or what kind of seems like as having other people say things for him almost. Like instead of him releasing an apology, it's other people are releasing statements and things like that, which is amazing to see their experiences and to know that they're okay and that they're happy there. But that's also not Swole's experience at the same time. And that's also not an apology either. So.
And you're touching on some fantastic points. First and foremost, shout out to Will Hobbs, right? Because he tweeted the fact that he feels that AEW is doing great and he was given opportunities, so on and so forth, and his experience is great, but that should not invalidate someone else's experience. And on the same level, I don't think. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's fair? Because a lot of people have been criticizing Will Hobbs then and really going hard at him. Do you think that type of criticism is warranted for him?
I feel like there was a reason it is happening, and it has to do with who he is. So if we look at the run that Will Hobbs has had in AEW right now, he's getting positioned well for the future. He's at a place where lots of people are talking about him when they're like, who's in the picture of a black male that could be a star or could be a champion? And the reason that it's interesting that he's releasing that statement is because he's one of the people that people are naming when talking about black male representation. And that's why some people are like, okay, this is weird that it's coming from him, but he's supposed to be the black male representation that we're looking for. And people are kind of confused, and I can understand why they might be confused by it. Will Hobbs hasn't been used the best in that company. Like, I think he could have been used a little bit better, to be honest, but as long as his experience is positive, we need to take his word for that and accept him and be happy that he's having a positive experience. We can still want more for him. I'm guessing he still wants more for himself, but I think we still need to remember that these people are human, one, and two, if this is how they feel, they have a right to say it. So if he wants to either stick up for AEW or defend AEW or whatever he feels it is, then he has the right to do it, especially as a black man in that company. We're speaking about diversity. He has an experience that he wants to share, which relates to diversity.
I agree. Well, since we're on the topic, because I do want to talk about the quotes, but since we're talking about diversity, it's a topic that comes up quite a bit in wrestling. I see your face already changing about it. Tell me, Jaychelle, why is diversity and representation in pro wrestling important?
Okay. Let me start with
I know it's the big one, but
I'm gonna start with Bianca and Sasha. I'm gonna start there because I feel like that's a great point for me to start at. I cried when I saw Bianca and Sasha happen. I literally saw two women who looked like me on a stage that big, main eventing WrestleMania. If I wanted to be a wrestler, I would have been like, that's my goal. They're literally achieving my goal, and I know it's possible because I'm seeing them do it. And if you look at Bianca specifically, she literally represents almost everything that it means to be a Black woman. I don't have the singular braid, but I have multiple braids. Me and her resonate. I literally actually got a cameo from her like at the beginning of the pandemic, and she told me that I inspired her, and I literally cried tears and tears and tears. But when we look at these people and we see ourselves in them, that means so much more than I could explain. Like, not even looking at me, looking at like little Black girls who look like Bianca and Sasha. And for them to see that, oh, these people are doing something that I am. These people are stars. These people are on my TV. It gives them so much inspiration. And then when we look at like Black males specifically as well, like we look at Big E, we look at Kofi. Look at Kofi's son, the joy that he was experiencing when he saw his father finally reach that milestone. Yeah. We see that that mirror image of looking at yourself and looking at like a child who sees themselves in you. And I think it's so important that we have that, because if you look at like white men and women, they have that and they don't have to clamor for that. They don't have to work for that. Like, their children see themselves in them without having to ask for more on TV. There's lots of people who already look like them. Swole even said when she was in AEW, her daughter didn't see any people that looked like her on TV. And that was one of the major concerns for her. And I think that's super valid, because if I'm looking at AEW right now, I see maybe Jade Cargill looks a little bit like me. We're not like, I'm not as big and strong as her. Love her to death.
Not a lot of people are like Jade Cargill, but exactly. I do get the point. Yes.
And exactly. But when I look at Swole, I literally got my hair color to match hers. Like, I literally see so much of myself in her. So when I was seeing her on AEW, I was like, Swole is my person. Swole is my girl. She's my representation in this company. And I think so many of us look for that in people. Like, that's why Shane Taylor Promotions is so important. Like, people see so many of themselves in SCP and the representation that they've provided to the industry across the board.
No, that's very interesting. And still on this topic, one of the things that I know you see it, because I see it too, and it makes me cringe, and I can only imagine what it means then for people who are truly impacted by this issue. You'll have people talking about representation, and then you'll have the responses. Oh, but Nyla Rose was champion, and the Lucha Bros are tag team champions. What more? Like, there's your representation. And sometimes, and listening to my Black colleagues and friends, they often make a point. It's like, people of color and being Black, not necessarily the same thing. Is that something that you agree with, that you feel is a thing?
Bong, right on the head. We'll even talk about it. When we talk about diversity and representation, we are specifically talking about Black representation. And I feel like maybe that's a miscommunication on our part. Maybe some people are cherry picking when we're talking about that. But I have a couple of stats that I wanted to take down. The last time on AEW TV that a Black male challenged for the AEW World title was back in November. And that was Scorpio Sky. That was November 2019, to be exact. So that's 2 years ago. Okay. Rich Swann happened in Impact or whatever it may be, but on AEW TV specifically. And if we look at the last 4 pay-per-views of 2021, we saw at Revolution, Ricky Starks lost, and then Scorpio Sky won. And those were the only 2 Black men on the card. We look at Double or Nothing, Anthony Ogogo and Scorpio Sky both lost. This is not including the Battle Royal. We look at All Out, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn lost on the pre-show. There were no Black males or Black females on the main card, not including the Battle Royal. And at Full Gear, Nyla Rose and Scorpio Sky both lost. Nyla Rose was on the pre-show. So as we're looking at this, we need to see stars being built. And there's not representation on pay-per-views as it seems right now. There's this much representation. I'm hoping this is going to begin to change as we bring in some new people like Keith Lee and Shane Strickland if they do end up in AEW. But right now they have some young stars that it could be elevated a little bit more. I think if we're being honest, when we look at Ricky Starks and he's saying that he's ready to go. People were like, oh, but he's injured. It seems like he's ready, and he deactivated his account because obviously there's so much pressure that has to deal with this, and it was so sad to see that. But as we look at these future stars, we need to see a path to championships here. We need to see a road to success. And right now, I don't feel like I'm seeing that too much, unless I'm like maybe Scorpio Sky with the TNT title. I'm not completely sure. I thought that was the path before, but now Cody has it and he beat Ethan Page. I don't know if that's where we're going, but we haven't seen a black male hold a singles title yet. And that's extremely concerning for me with how many title changes there have been. And they have two different varieties of championships, the TNT title and the AEW World title. And specifically for people to say that their stars there aren't ready, that's discrediting and disvaluing the black talent that is there. If they really wanted to, I don't want you to tell me they can't put a belt on Will Hobbs right now, a TNT title, or on Ricky Starks.
Yeah, you just gave me shivers because that was pretty much what I was going to say. Like sometimes I feel like people don't quite get just how pro wrestling works, and exactly. It's at some point it's just the head, the booker, the guy who has the pencil, whoever's in charge says this person is getting a push. That's how it works. And there is history, Jaychelle, to prove that there are tons of people who weren't ready who got the push and got the titles anyway. There's history, precedent. I'm completely with you on that. Well, how about some advice? What if I were to ask you, someone who sees a representation tweet out there, for instance, and suddenly feels compelled to pull out the Nyla Rose with Lucha Bros argument, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to do, as opposed to go out and tweet something like that?
Yeah, first don't tweet. Delete your Twitter account if that's what you're gonna do. One. Okay. No, but actually, I think it's important to do the research here. When we look at statistics like this, and when was the last time a black male challenged for the world title on AEW TV, these statistics they're not lying. And I understand that there's the women's world title, and Nyla is not a diversity check all the boxes person. She said it like almost out of her mouth that she's not interested in that, and that's not who she is. And it seems like people always call tokenism or pushing people or they don't deserve it or shortcuts or whatever. But if you're using these people, you're tokenizing them for their titles that they've won. You're limiting them to just who they are as in their race, not because of they've won these championships because they deserved it. I'm honestly disgusted when I see tweets about diversity when it's obvious that we're talking about black representation. There's no need to cherry pick because somebody used the wrong words. Like I don't think that that's necessary. But there's one other thing I wanted to mention before that I didn't get to. But we didn't. If we look at Darby Allin and Jungle Boy, when they first came to AEW, I don't think we really saw them as like huge TV stars like they are now. And we only saw them like that because the company got behind them. So if the company gets behind people like Ricky Starks, Dante Martin, Will Hobbs as strongly as they did, we would see these strong title contenders and we would see people in these same positions. But I'm not really seeing that right now. AEW, if you're listening, Lee Moriarty is right there, and you need to push that man to the moon. He's ready too. He's like
he's been ready for a while, and he has all the intangibles. Like he's one of these guys you could build a promotion on. Exactly. Before we wrap things up, just one more thing I'd like to talk about. There's been instances, right, in the past where wrestlers have gone on various media outlets once they leave their promotion of choice, and they go on to media outlets to practically bury their former employer, right? And they're heralded practically as heroes, right? We almost throw parades for them. I'd argue that Swole isn't getting that same level of support, despite the fact that she has been gracious and courteous and so kind in the story that she put forward, which I think was smart, by the way, for her to get her story out instead of having a narrative crafted around it. I think it was a very smart idea for her to do. But I don't feel she's getting that level of support. What do you think?
I think there's two reasons that's happening. I think one of them is because she's from AEW. Normally when we see like that positive support around criticism, it's coming from WWE. Not saying like that one is better than the other. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the tribalism stuff, but it seems like a lot of the issue is one, either because of tribalism or two, straight up racism and sexism. I feel like there's no in between. Like it's one or the two reasons. She is a Black woman in wrestling, and it's already so hard for Black women specifically to get booked and things like that, to get booked on shows. For an employer to come out and say that you're bad at your job, that messes with your money, and that messes with her future and her career and her family and all of those things. And that's super alarming. But when we look at other people like John Moxley, for example, and they're coming out of these companies and they don't have the most positive things to say because they've had negative experiences, they're like, oh, go to AEW. That's the place where there's a family. How are we supposed to believe that there's a family if this is how you treat somebody once they leave? It's super concerning when we look at Swole's story, how she's told it. We're never kind enough, it seems like, as Black women. We always either have to be super, super nice and people try to find holes in our story, or we try to do it just right, and then there's still issues and anger surrounded by the way we're telling our story, or even I heard some issues with like the tone of voice that Swole took in the episode, which was like she's literally speaking, and it's just so much implicit bias, I think, that people aren't even doing the research to kind of figure out, or looking into themselves and seeing what is the reason that they're taking issue with her comments or any of those things. And I think there's a saying that like Black women are the most disrespected women in America and in the world. And I think that's incredibly true here. I think if we would have seen somebody else, or if we eventually do see somebody else kind of come out and say comments like that, not that I want the reaction to happen to them, but it will be interesting to compare to see how the reaction to Swole is versus the reaction to them. I would just like to see if there's a change in the conversation based on who the person is. I think it's very interesting and telling of the characters of the people who feel the need to address the situation. And I feel like I had to set a very, very hard boundary when the Big E situation happened with the Brock Lesnar thing. And I was like, I don't have the capacity to talk to people who don't understand this. If you haven't done the research, or if you don't understand the history of being Black in wrestling, I don't have the capacity to argue with you about this. Specifically as a Black woman, I don't have the emotional capacity to argue with somebody who is just going to try to tear down my point because I'm defending somebody who is Black. And some of these situations get so toxic and the conversations get so nasty that there's no reason for us to even have the conversation in the first place. Mm-hmm. Unless we're both going in with positive intentions of making a change, there's no reason for us to be having the conversation.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, because conversations oftentimes on social media aren't that exactly right, and there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily looking for that. At the time that we're recording this, Tony Khan hasn't redacted a statement. There hasn't been an apology. Do you feel that this is something that he should do? I
think that's up to Swole. From when I last talked to her, she told me that she was okay. If she wants an apology privately or publicly, I think that's her decision to make. For us to say that she needs a public apology, I think that's her decision, specifically since she was the person that was targeted. If she wants this to be done and she wants it to be over and just has the tweet deleted or whatever it may be, I think that's her decision. I think she needs to be the one that we consult when we're trying to move forward with this situation. It's her who was most affected. So I think that's important to kind of look to her for that decision.
Are you saying that we should be talking to each other instead of reacting? Is that what you're telling me?
Magical idea. I wonder who's ever thought of it.
Crazy stuff. Jaychelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me to break this down a little bit. Some fantastic insights. Thank you so much. We enjoy your work over at Body Slam. Let everyone know where they can follow you on social media and where they can make sure that they don't miss a minute of what you do.
Yeah, you guys can follow me at Jaychelle Nicole right on the screen over here. I'm doing some writing work. I do lots of podcasting stuff on Body Slam. I got a show called ADH Divas on Sunday at 6 p.m. Bianca time, or EST. But that show is lots and lots of chaos. We talk about wrestling a little bit. A lot of it is just like comedy bits. I have to eat a jalapeno pepper on this week's episode. Not super excited for that, but my best friend ate an onion on the last episode, so it's only fair.
Listen, if I can give you a tip, you take the seed. Try to get some of the seeds out before because that's where the heat is.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do then, because I already know I'm going to cry. If you want to see me cry and laugh at me crying, then I guess you should tune in. Bianca time, 6 p.m.
You absolutely should. 6 p.m. EST. That's fantastic. Yes. Jaychelle, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
There we go. I didn't realize my mic was off, but here, I'm okay now. Thank you very much, Jaychelle, for a fantastic segment, a great talk, and some fantastic points. So glad that Jaychelle took some time to come and chat with me. She was in the chat even during the segment live here. So just absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much. Jaychelle Nicole, managing editor of bodyslam.net, a fantastic person, fantastic talk. And let's go watch her eat a jalapeno on Sunday. I think that'll be fun. All right, time for the weekly wrestling inspection, folks. We like this music, don't we? We'll listen to it again. All right. Let's get into all of this nonsense. Been running a poll here that I'm going to end here. Here we go. Asking about WWE Day 1, which was the big pay-per-view to kick off the new year from World Wrestling Entertainment. I was asking the live chat here, how would you rate a Day 1 the Day 1 pay-per-view this Sunday? Thumbs up, thumbs down. 64% of the live viewers here gave it a big old thumbs down, while 35% gave it a thumbs up. It's interesting to me because interesting. I have trouble understanding, not trouble understanding. I'm realizing as things go on that I have a certain disconnect with a lot of people who watch wrestling, because I sat down to take a look at Day 1 to watch it. What do you mean take a look, Warren? To watch it. And I was like, this show's not good. This is not a good show. But I saw flowers being thrown everywhere. People saying this is, I got people straight up in my mentions on Twitter going, you're insane. This was a fantastic show. Great action, bell to bell, top to bottom. I was like, we are not watching the same thing. Like clearly there is stuff, and this is something that I'm coming to grips with. There are things that WWE, that people who really, really like WWE, there are things that they look for that they're able to find. And clearly what I want out of my pro wrestling, WWE isn't delivering it to me. Like, I mean, this is a clear indication here. And I think, and this show was a testament to that, because I felt like online, and a lot of, contemporaries, peers, whatever you want to call them, colleagues, being very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Enthusiastic about the show. Being very complimentary. There's the word I was looking for. Very complimentary once the show was done. And Day 1 was fantastic. And I'm like, what were we watching? Let me look, I'm going to break it down. I won't go, I don't think I'll go too much into detail, but what the hell you guys have watched the MrWarrenHayes show before. You know that I'll say, oh, I'm not going to do this, but then I end up doing it anyway. The pre-show was Sheamus and the rugby player versus Ricochet and Cesaro. And I just want to point out here, the reason why I'm talking about it, because the match was fine, but it was handicapped almost straight off the bat, because Ricochet and Cesaro did a flipping standing moonsault thing, an assisted standing moonsault is what I think I should call it. And Ricochet, his knee landed right on Ridge Holland's nose and broke his nose, started gushing, and he was out of the ring. he didn't return for the entire match. Sheamus carried the entire match. Sheamus, folks, is one of the MVPs of WWE. He really, truly, sincerely is. He's fantastic in what he does. Talk about Bobby Lashley, how fantastic he was. Sheamus was fantastic in 2020, in 2021, especially in 2021, having fantastic matches for his size and just awesome stuff. And coming and then he ends up in this match and he's carrying the entire load. Like, it turns into a handicap match, plus he pulls out the win. Like, I love that they stick to the finish, even though, like, there's a fuck up. No one calls the audible. It's like, okay, well, Ricochet and Cesaro have to win now. Like, no one's no. Let's just make sure that Sheamus is an absolute terror and a badass, right? Let's just make sure. I personally loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Sheamus's performance, the match was fine, but Sheamus's performance was outstanding. Sheamus is outstanding. Don't anyone let you tell you otherwise. Okay. First match on the main card was the WWE SmackDown Tag Team title match. The Usos successfully retained their titles against the New Day combination of King Xavier Woods and the Hand, Kofi Kingston. Look, I saw people go, wow, what a fantastic match, what a great match. And look, you go back and you listen to my prediction show that I did with Matt Ritter of Smackin' It Raw podcast. We were both like, there is no way this match is going to stink, but Jesus, we've seen it so many times. And it's not like there's anything really new or spicy about it. It's just like, and I swear, like, if we really had a sincere breath between seeing the Usos and the New Day have tag team matches, I think people would get automatically excited about it, like, in a general sense. But they've run this in combinations for the past 2 years, like, on top of each other. Of course, once the match hit second gear, there's nothing you can say about this stinking it up. You felt like, this match felt like it was supposed to be shorter, but they added on some time because Roman couldn't make it, right? So you really felt like it dragged because they were told, boys, you have to add on 3 minutes to the match, after 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it was. Maybe not 5, 3 minutes. The match lasted 17 minutes. So there was probably a substantial amount of time that was added there because, look, but this is fine. I liked the match. This was probably my favorite match of the night. All right? Drew McIntyre defeated Madcap Moss. And this bullshit almost went 10 minutes, folks. I don't know what to tell you. There is no reason why this match should have been on a pay-per-view. There's no reason Riddick Moss should be in these positions. Absolutely not. Fighting former WWE champions in singles matches on pay-per-views. Absolutely not. The guy hit the bricks. And there's nothing more I can say about it. Of course, we all saw this coming a mile away. Like, we know what this was for. Setting up and I'm doing air quotes here for those who aren't watching, the bigger feud of Drew McIntyre versus Baron Corbin. Happy Corbin. Whatever the fuck you want to call him. Like, look again, they fire fucking Timothy Thatcher, but they're going to keep Riddick Moss. RK Bro successfully defended the WWE Raw Tag Team titles against the Street Profits. I thought it was boring. I thought it was dull as hell. And I think that's, to me, one of the worst things you can do in wrestling is bore someone. Like, there's no reason wrestling should be boring. It can be, look, sloppy, exciting, sure, weird, like maybe something that'll break your brain. It'll be like inconceivable, but this was it was boring. And I think to me, it shows that even if WWE is able to have two hot acts, like there's no denying, regardless of what you think of the angle per se, there's no denying that the RK Bro thing is working and that people are getting over because of it. People love it, okay? Street Profits, I think they're a high energy, enjoyable act. I think people really like Montez Ford's antics. I think they're really into that. Personally, I'm a big Angelo Dawkins guy. I think Angelo Dawkins has improved tremendously since being in NXT. He has become the anchor of that team. Trust me on this. He has been fantastic. And yet you can put all these elements together and still pull up a stinker. And you know what the problem is here? Then it becomes a question of what WWE lets them do, how the matches are produced. It's just as simple as that afterwards. Because there's no one who stinks in that match. Like there are no bad wrestlers. This should not have been a boring match. You know what I mean? But it was dull. Speaking of dull, Edge defeated The Miz in, what did Dave Meltzer call it? The water torture? Is that what he called it? That was an insufferably long, pointlessly long match. And I don't know what people were expecting here. I really don't. I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't expecting a 20-minute match out of these guys. Because that's what we got. We got a 20-minute match. And I have nothing really to say about it. I did just... outside of me at my... sitting in front of my television going, let's bring it home, fellas! Every 2 minutes. After we pass the 10-minute mark. Let's bring it home, fellas! God damn it. But that's the thing. I just don't know what people were expecting. But I think this is a bit of a generalized problem. I think it was a generalized problem on the show because the minute that they pulled Roman from the card, and I am not saying this as a knock, Roman Reigns had COVID. Yes, thank God they kept him off the card. Thank God they kept him at home. Hope I read Roman is doing well and that he'll be back on SmackDown tomorrow. Praise the heavens. I'm glad he's okay. Like that's ultimately all that matters. And if they pulled him off the show, that's fine. But what I was surprised with is that they didn't replace it with anything. And I'm pretty sure then they said, well, we're going to add time instead on all the matches that we had. And I think there's a lot of matches that didn't need the time that was allocated to them. And they probably did add time. And I'm surprised that they didn't add like an extra match, a little 10-minute match that would have kept everything in its regular, time allotments instead of a lot of things feeling like they're going too long, like the opening match, like Edge versus Miz, like Becky and Liv. Like, I'm convinced. I'm 100%, not 100%, but I'm pretty convinced that that's what was going on. I think it's a problem that was through. And then I had a bit of a chat with someone saying, they could have replaced the match. It's not as if they don't have anyone sitting in catering doing nothing. And that person was like, are you sure they don't have anyone in catering anymore? Touche. Yeah, I mean, come on, come on. Couple of hellos here, by the way. Swiss Roll Chris, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Nice to see you. Jason PS3 as well. Good to see you, sir. And AK Germany as well. Good to see you. We have our boy Anakin here who left us a couple of super chats. Thank you very much. Oh, there we go. Anakin says, because there's one that I'll keep for just a little bit, Anakin, but I'll read the one here. Meltzer waterboarding tweet was in reference to Edge and Orton WrestleMania last year. Yes, you're right. Evan in the chat brought it up in relation because it was just as bad. Okay. Well, I don't think it was as bad because the Edge and Orton at WrestleMania was that was a rough one. Anyway, see, but and I don't think this is a criticism that applies necessarily just to WWE. I talk about it with New Japan all the time. Longer doesn't necessarily mean better. Right? It's not because you're putting on a long match that it's instantly a better match. I'm right now, a couple of my favorite matches of the year are of 2021 are time limit draws, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you can do a fun time limit draw. I think that's actually extra pressure to make a time limit draw feel fantastic. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Keep going down the day one card. The Raw Women's title was also on the line. Beckworth Lynchington defeated Liv Morgan. Folks, we have to have an honest talk about Liv Morgan. Okay? We have to have an honest talk about Liv Morgan. Let's chat amongst ourselves here. Grab yourself a drink. You comfy? Now, I've said multiple times on this very program that I think Liv Morgan has all the intangibles to be a great babyface for that company, and they don't use her well. They really don't. It's not by tossing her into 3 to 5 minute matches, week in, week out, or not even week in, week out, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every month, that someone improves in the ring. And any wrestler worth their salt will tell you exactly that, because I've been told that and I believe it. So I don't think that's a way to improve. I think Liv was put in this position of suddenly being a main event, a main event challenger or a title contender. Let's put it that way, because it wasn't the main event. You know what I mean? I think it was a very ungrateful place to put her in, because I think she does have intangibles. I think she is very, very kind. Jaychelle Nicole became a member of the MrWarrenHayes show. Thank you so much, Jaychelle. I appreciate it. Welcome to the membership program. She has these intangibles. She has that very awesome connection, but the problem that she has, which is not even her problem, is that WWE doesn't have an undercard in which she can thrive and develop. Because as far as the women's division goes, it is always a question: who is the next person to challenge? Oh, it's their turn. It's this person's turn. No one ever gets built. No one ever gets heated. When Liv came in to challenge Becky, she had been on a losing streak, for fuck's sake. She got eliminated like second or third in her Survivor Series team. She lost to Bianca at the military show, the Tribute to the Troops show. Like, she comes in as a loser, and suddenly we're supposed to consider her a potential winner. And I understand that people want her to succeed and want her to be a babyface, because she has that intangible. She really has that thing that can get an audience to back her up, but you have to build her. And this is the ungrateful situation she was put in. You combine that with the fact that she's not properly heated and not given time to grow and improve in wrestling, and this is what you got. It wasn't a good match. I'm sorry to say, it breaks my heart every single time, but it was not a good match. Again, the fact that they decided to run it 3 times just blows my mind. I don't understand why they did that. After the first time, they just said, look, we got to put Liv on ice for a bit. We got to the Liv Becky thing on ice for a bit. We got to get Liv on TV. We have to give her some feuds, have her fight with Queen Zelina, have her do shit. Let her grow as a wrestler and grow in the hearts and minds of wrestling fans. It's just that simple. Like, it's not complicated. Booking wrestling is not rocket science. I'm not saying it's easy, but you don't need a master's degree in aerophysics to get it done either. It's so simple sometimes. And look, and Jaychelle in the chat, she said it. She said that springboard sunset bomb that she did was fantastic. But I mean, it's one thing, right? Liv doesn't have basics. She doesn't throw strikes. She doesn't throw punches. She doesn't kick. I never see her fundamentals. I see her pulling moves. That's what she does out the gate. She does moves, and that's fantastic. But it's also like, no, Jesus Christ, she needs her fundamentals to be able to build a wrestling in-ring story. It can't always be moves all the time. And that's why I think it's an ungrateful situation she was put in. And I still believe in Liv Morgan. I still think she has stuff, this is going to sound corny, but a lot of love to give. Wrestling, she really does. But she needs an environment in which she's able to thrive in. Liv needs a mid-card. She needs a proper, strong, well-built, well-thought-out mid-card. But look at the words I'm saying. Well-built, well-thought-out, and this is WWE we're talking about. So of course it's not going to happen. But it's a shame because she's thrust into this position. It's like, do your magic. It's a terrible situation to put her in. And I'm not for it. And I think she could grow in different ways. If there was a proper I don't know if she's a main eventer. I really don't. But she could be a hell of a mid-carder, I'll tell you that much. And there's no shame in that. And I'm not saying that as if to say she's worthless. Au contraire, it's just that WWE, since WWE doesn't have a mid-card, then you're either a main eventer or you're nothing. Main eventer, catering. And that's not Liv's fault. Want to say hello to Kristen Ashley, the first lady of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Yeah. Who has been a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel for 21 months. Who wrote out the hashtag hire female writers directly in response to Jaychelle. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here, Kristen. I hope your spaces went well. Conrad from Everything Pro Wrestling is here as well. Nice to see you. And Mr. Fretz is here. Nice to see you as well. And finally, we had the main event, which was the Fatal 5-Way match. Brock Lesnar was added to the 4-way, and then because Roman had the big Rona, and that's absolutely okay. Brock Lesnar defeated Big E, Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, and Seth Rollins to become WWE champion. I'm not going to say much about this, but here's the thing. Brock doesn't need a title to be a star or a draw or something of interest in WWE. Have him come in and have some high-profile secondary feuds, but right at the top with some top people or elevate people. Like, I can't help but make a slight comparison to bringing Brock in and feeling you have to put a title on him immediately, or bring Brock in and have him play a CM Punk kind of role where he feuds with upper card guys, has a couple of matches with some under guys, and just like has a little fun on the roster instead of skyrocketing up. But again, see, without a proper, strong, convincing mid-card, it's either you're at the top or nothing. So I get why they did it. Don't get me wrong, I understand. My point is that he doesn't need Brock Lesnar at this stage in his career doesn't need a WWE championship to feel like a big deal. The other point that I want to bring up here is that this proves that WWE never really had faith in Big E from the start. From the moment that they were like, yeah, you're going to win the WWE championship by doing the cash-in gimmick, to his reign in and about itself, there's nothing special about, nothing made you feel like WWE was getting behind this guy. You felt they were getting behind Bobby Lashley. You felt they were getting behind Drew McIntyre. You never felt that with Big E. And I saw the arguments online where it's like, yeah, some people pulling out his cage match statistics and look at all the matches he lost. And then look at all the matches he won. Well, they're practically 50-50. You don't 50-50 your champion. You don't have him lose in a triple threat the week after he wins the title. Not if you have faith in him, you don't. Not if you see him as a top guy. Not if you see him as a guy who can carry the weight and be... And it's not... Again, another thing that boggles my mind, because Big E has everything WWE wants. He's huge, athletic, super charismatic, presents himself as like a star in media appearances. He's affable. He's funny. He's got all the traits. I don't get it. And my problem with this match is that it went 8 minutes, just over 8 minutes. And that was my problem. We get 20 minutes of Miz and Edge, which was basically nothing, a nothing match. And we get 8 minutes here, and this match was cooking. And I felt like I was starting to get revved up. You have Kevin Owens flying through the air, doing insane shit. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And then boom, I get neutered. Literally, not literally, figuratively. No one literally neutered me when they decided to end the match so quickly. It was kind of bullshit. And that's why because everyone was like, oh, but such great furious action. Yeah, but we were just revving up. It was just starting to get really good. You could have added on easily another 5 minutes of crazy stuff. You had 5 guys in this match. It's not as if anyone had to do it's not as if 2 guys had to do a crazy cardio workout here. You had space. You had 5 guys in this match. It's so weird to me. And that's what I mean. Like, why did we feel like that's the disconnect I'm talking about. And people raving about the main event. And I'm like, it was just getting started. Just got interrupted. I don't know. Anakin left us a super chat in this regard, by the way. Thank you again, Anakin. I appreciate it. It says the main event went 8 minutes 25 seconds when it was stated for 30 with entrances. Fatal 4-Way at SummerSlam went 20 minutes 52, way too short for an enjoyable match. I agree. We are absolutely on the same wavelength. You and I, absolutely too short, which is weird when they're tacking on time on all the other matches, right? When they're tacking on time, they're clearly tacking on time on all the other matches, but this one here, I thought it was a mediocre show. I think it's entirely forgettable. I don't think it's WWE putting its best foot forward. I can appreciate that the fact that Roman was gone sort of threw a wrench in plans, but if time was the issue for adding time on all the other matches on the card, You should have just added another match. You have tons of people. You have tons of people. You could have thrown anything together at this point. Put Pat McAfee in the ring. Excuse me. Here's something I forgot to mention when I was talking about Edge and Miz. Now, Beth Phoenix got involved, right? And we were sort of all expecting this to happen. You know, when Marie started getting involved, it was like, oh, Beth is going to come in and then they're going to do the mixed match challenge. You know what they're doing? Think about it for a second. Miz and Edge and the Wives. They're rerunning Miz and Daniel Bryan. Literally. The Miz, well, again, not literally, figure of speech. Here, listen, check this out. Miz is feuding with a wrestler who was injured, was told that he could never wrestle again, makes his comeback, does a little one-on-one thing. The next thing you know, the guys and their wives are all fighting and it all ends in a mixed match challenge. It's exactly the same thing. They're rerunning Miz and Daniel Bryan to the T. It's wild. WWE was a bit of a land of disappointment this week. More firings. William Regal was released from his role in the company. A bunch of people got released. William Regal, and this is the one that rightfully baffles everyone's mind. From top to bottom, there is no real conceivable reason for this to occur, for this to happen. William Regal had a role in the company, of course, a TV role of being general manager of NXT, right? But he was, he had a huge backstage role, talent scout for the company. This is a guy who has a wealth of knowledge of the wrestling business. It's a guy who absolutely dedicated his life to the business from the moment he started to still today. Who understands how wrestling has evolved because he kept his ear to the ground or his finger on the pulse, whatever you want to call it. He's followed the talent. He's met the talent. He's made recommendations. People listen to the guy. He's given people jobs in WWE. People have got their jobs in WWE off of the recommendation of William Regal. The face of WWE today would not be what it is if it hadn't been for William Regal's involvement in talent development and talent scouting, for sure. It goes beyond, and of course, NXT, but then all these people move up to main roster. There's people who wouldn't be here, wouldn't be in NXT, who wouldn't be on the main roster today if it wasn't for him. And this is a guy who, why do you leave him go out into the world? A guy who has this impressive, unequaled knowledge of wrestling. Why would you leave him go? It personally baffles my mind. I don't understand. I'm going to tell you one thing. These types of situations, they bring out the bad faith actors in online pundits, writers, or just people on Twitter, whatever. But anyone, I'm telling you right now, anyone who will sit here with a stone face and tell you, doesn't matter, William Regal was never a good wrestler to begin with, anyone who tells you that is absolutely a revelation that person has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to pro wrestling. That they just have no idea. I have no idea of the history, the contributions of someone, and I have no idea what a professional wrestler is. So That's entirely, that is my advice. That is my alarm that I set off to you. That should ring bells to you if you get into that position where you're like, oh no, I heard about the, nope. That's how you figure it out. And you can tell, I always say this, you can tell the measure of how much someone is liked / beloved in wrestling by the measure of responses of support that they get when something bad happens, when they get fired, when they pass away. Look at the outpour of love from wrestlers of all generations, reaching out, stating just how great William Regal is, how fantastic he was, how he'd go above and beyond, so on and so forth. Just look out there. If he was an asshole and a son of a bitch, if he was useless and pointless, no one would be saying a thing. It's ridiculous, man. Vape Ross Vape, good to see you. Welcome to the chat. Who else did the Road Dogg Brian James was also released today from his role in it. Well, was it today or yesterday? Yesterday, I think. Ace Steel, Dave Kapoor, Scott Armstrong, Ryan Katz, and here's one that breaks your heart. Allison Danger, Kathy Carino, longtime women's wrestler. She moved into producing and creative. She got her job with WWE 3 months ago. 3 months ago. She basically, she hadn't even started making, her breaking in her office chair, right? 3 months later, after she uproots her life, her family, she has a kid, uproots her family from Vegas to move to Orlando. On the day that her kid started school, yesterday, she gets the call. She says, it is budget cuts. What a bullshit way to operate. And I've worked in corporate contexts. I've worked in corporate contexts. Multiple. I've worked in companies that don't give a shit about their people, and I've worked and still work in a company that does care about its people and its talent. That recognizes that the people that work for them are resources, they're talent, and they have lives, right? WWE, I can't even buy the excuse when you hear these types of situations. Can't even buy the excuse of, oh, this is just corporate America. No, it's not. No, it's not, because there is a way to do these things properly. There is a way to treat your people as the premier resource that they are. You don't have a company without people. You don't grow without people, and especially with talented people. You get someone to move in, and 3 months later, oh no, we're done, hit the bricks. That's bullshit. And there's no other way to call it. It's callous and it's bullshit. And here's another guy. Hideki Suzuki, Hachiman. He was released as well. You want to talk about uprooting? He got his job in April. He moved from Japan to take the job. We're not even a full year in. Hit the bricks, pal. Timothy Thatcher, Danny Burch. Look, both fantastic wrestlers, right? I love them both. Timothy Thatcher and Danny Burch, though, you saw the writing on the wall when they switched to NXT 2.0 and all the whatever they're doing right now. You saw it. There was no room for Thatcher or Birch on this next, on this new incarnation of NXT. They just didn't belong there. Oni's gone, right? And we were like, of course they're going to release Oni. Well, of course they were going to release Timothy Thatcher and Danny Birch, even though it breaks my heart. It's not like I'm like, oh yeah, let's get rid of these sons of bitches. It's nothing like that. But it sucks, man. And today we find out that, first of all, Gabe Sapolsky has been terminated from WWE as well. He's gone too. Just in case you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, Dave Sapolsky, co-founder of Ring of Honor, founder of Dragon Gate USA, co-founder of Evolve, and I think he was the only owner of Evolve, I believe, when it was sold to WWE. He was a scout there for WWE, consultant, talent scout. I don't know what this guy's going to do. I have no clue what Gabe is going to do moving forward. Gabe has burnt many bridges and has terminated many friendships over his few decades in the world of pro wrestling. Outside putting together his own promotion again, which he's done, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went around and did it, because he's done it 3 times. I don't know who I don't know what who would want to work with him. Very bad reputation, very terrible reputation among talent as well. I'm sure you've heard the stories of Ethan Page and Darby Allin, who had some very ripe things to say about old Gabe. I mean, keep an eye on him, but I don't see where he ends up. I can't see where he's going to end up. This guy has a bit of an aura about him, and not the good kind. Is he still tight with Heyman? I don't know. He has, he learned a lot from Paul. Let's put it that way. So we'll probably be on some kind of venture at some point, but there's no one going, Sapolsky to AEW. No. Sapolsky would be poison for that locker room. And we learned that Samoa Joe was released again. Two-time. That's a crying shame. Guy comes back, ring ready, has this match for NXT, and then it's like, no, you know what? We're done with the black and gold, and it's like, we're getting rid of the belt. You're dropping the title. You're dropping the title. I don't want to get tinfoil hat with y'all. I really don't. But you do have to wonder how truly injured he was. Now that, hindsight is 2020 now, right? Is Joe really injured? Maybe they just pulled that card because Joe does have a history of injuries, and maybe it's like, okay, well, this is very believable. And I don't know. I don't know. Such a weird situation. I don't understand WWE. I really don't. Like, they're clearly, and I think it goes above just getting rid of Triple H's guys, right? I think that it goes a little beyond that, because clearly what they're doing, they're getting rid of the wrestling people, right? Yeah. And I think what we're seeing more than ever, because it's not as if it's anything new. I'm not gonna lay a truth bomb on you here, But I think we are seeing WWE taking steps to move into a more entertainment-based environment as opposed to a wrestling one. They're getting rid of the wrestling people. They're getting rid of everyone who has the knowledge and who can train and can produce wrestling matches. They are an entertainment company. Their main competition is Marvel and Disney. I wouldn't be surprised if soon WWE we start hearing them talk about high flying stage combat as opposed to wrestling or sports entertainment, you know? I wouldn't be surprised. Because the hires they've been doing, the people that they have been adding to the PC are not wrestlers. They're athletes. They're gymnasts. They're football players. They're bodybuilders. They're sports models? What? No, that's not the right word. No. Athletes. Shit, I forget the term. I don't want to say anything. But look, this is what I think they're leaning towards, more and more people who are performers before they are wrestlers. That's what they want. And it's probably going to be a long-term plan. But that's what we're moving to. Fitness models. Thank you, AKA Germany. Exactly. Fitness models. Thank you. I don't know why but clearly this is where we're going. And maybe this is why this disconnect with NXT 2.0 and myself is happening, and the disconnect is happening with WWE, because it's resembling less and less a wrestling show. You know what I mean? I wish it was mathletes that they were going for. That would add a little something. And talking about things that they've released, and I can't even get mad about. I don't have the energy to get mad about WWE firing people anymore. It's disappointing. It sucks for everyone involved. It especially sucks for Kathy Carino, I find, and for Hachiman. I think it's terrible. But I've had the WWE I've had these rants. I don't have the energy for them anymore. We can only point them out and be disappointed and sad and frustrated. But at this point, there's nothing I can say that I haven't already said in regards to how callous a company it is, how a terrible place to work it is. There's nothing else I can add. Anakin left us a super chat. Thank you, Anakin. It says, Sean Ross, Sap confirmed today that Samoa Joe was legit hurt. Okay, good. Like I said, I didn't want to tinfoil it. But everything does seem a little sus, as the kids say. Sus. Among Us. That's where it all started. Among Us. Putting sus into the vernacular. But that we're talking about all these firings and things that WWE is taking away. Pour one out for the Cruiserweight title, folks. And the Cruiserweight Classic. Because ultimately, I think that's what we need to be mourning here. I think this is the title unification match. By the way, very good match between Roderick Strong and Carmelo Hayes on NXT 2.0 this week. Strong stuff. Very, very, very good. Best match of the night. But what a shame. We're done with the Cruiserweight belt. It's been assimilated into the North American title, and the Cruiserweight. It's mostly the Cruiserweight title, the Cruiserweight Classic, that ultimately I feel is the thing that I'm going to mourn here, because I feel like it was the promise of something great from WWE. I was chatting about it with a few people, and I think there's a consensus. And I hadn't really thought about it until some people started pointing it out to me. This is probably the best tournament WWE has ever put on. Probably one of the best. It's probably one of the best productions they've ever put together, as far as creating a sports-based, entertaining, wrestling-focused show tournament. It was just fantastic from top to bottom. and in the entire presentation as well. And we got people, look, I mean, there's a lot of people who ended up with jobs and still have jobs. Fantastic wrestlers, you know, that made their mark in WWE. TJP, of course, being the first Cruiserweight champion. Grand Metalik was and Lindsay Dorado, both in here as well. Cedric Alexander, Drew McIntyre. We all know the fantastic story of Mustafa Ali, who came in as an alternate and was given a chance upon injury. He wasn't supposed to compete. He was in there as an alternate, but ended up being in the tournament. So that's really where everything kicked off. Yeah, Johnny Gargano in this tournament as well. Rich Swann, the return to prominence of our boy Spanky Brian Kendrick as well. And then the outside forces, Zack Sabre Jr., Kota Ibushi, you know, in this match, bringing in Akira Tozawa from DDT. Like, just Dragon Gate, excuse me. All sorts of great stuff, right? Just fantastic stuff. And some memorable matches with some incredible spots and just tournament wrestling-based, sports-based, great commentary. Just good shit from top to bottom. Hell, we were even having, I don't know if you remember this, there were international qualifying matches for the tournament. Do you remember this? And out of Progress, out of Rev Pro, they had... I think Noam Dar was the guy who won from Rev Pro. They had Zack Sabre Jr., who was wrestling for Progress at the time. He won over there. Like, it felt like a big deal because WWE was treating it like a big deal and everyone was getting excited about it. Everyone was legitimately excited, and it was really good stuff. Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan were on commentary. And it really was the promise of something great. It really was. Oh, they ended up with their show. With the Cruiserweights have their own show, 205 Live, and the belt is created, and it's like, this is the showcase. This is your work rate show, folks. This is the show that if you want to see just guys, go for it. The Shut Up and Wrestle crowd, head over here. But WWE had trouble getting into 205 Live. Never gave it the proper respect that it should have had. I think, you know, one of the gravest mistakes it ever did with 205 Live was to put it on live or record it after a SmackDown where the crowd is spent. The crowd has seen everyone they wanted to see. They wanted to see Roman. They wanted to see Becky. They saw all the stars. And then it's like, oh, stick around for another hour of wrestling with these guys that no one knows because they're not properly featured anywhere. 10 p.m. on the WWE Network on Friday nights. Come on, right? Pac is a two-time WWE Cruiserweight champion. What a shame. Anyway, pour one out. The era of cruiserweights in WWE is over. Let's talk about AEW now. We're going to go over the shows. Thank you all for still being here, for hanging out. If you like what's going on right now, give the video a like, share it out into the world, subscribe. Look, if I always like to think that I work for your subscriptions to get them, to maintain them. If you want to, if you're enjoying this and you feel like, yeah, this guy deserves a subscription, then go ahead. I appreciate it. No, we're not talking about Enzo or Austin Aries, okay? Okay. We're not. This is where I draw the line. Let's go back to Rampage last Friday. I want to talk about the tag team street fight between TayJay, Anna Jay, and Tay Conchi. versus Penelope Ford and the Bunny. This was very, very, very good. What an entertaining... It was a lot of fun. I had to like these fantastic. But this was very good. Penelope Ford hitting a moonsault off the turnbuckle onto Tay, was laid out on a table on the floor. Table didn't break. Great stuff. She cracks a bottle across Conti's head, though. Glass bottle. Whack! People are blading everywhere. Like Bunny. Of course, that's the big visual, right? Bunny just, her face pouring in blood. Great stuff here from the women. We get thumbtacks in this match. Conti rejoins, gets into the match at some point with a Gotch style pile driver on Penelope Ford off the apron through a table on the outside. Jesus fucking Christ! Jay eventually hits Anna Jay hits a superplex onto the tacks. And Anna Jay gets the win by locking, I think it was the Bunny, locking the Bunny up into the Queen Slayer while she had put barbed wire around her arm. Fantastic stuff. It's great shit. Penelope Ford, man, I'm going to tell you. Everyone was like, oh, the Bunny was, Bunny, she bled. And it is a striking visual, and everyone worked hard in this match. But Penelope Ford, MVP of this match. If you watch the match and you see she is guiding everyone through it. You can tell she's the ring general. She's directing traffic. She's keeping everyone on top of things. She's moving stuff around. She's doing all sorts of little things to make sure the spots hit, to make sure everyone is looking great. She truly was the MVP of this match. Just a fantastic performance all around. And I saw the, why do they have the women that bleed? And I'm like, fuck off, who cares? These are wrestlers, and the wrestlers are in a hardcore match. They're in a street fight. Fantastic. If they bring out the tacks and they bring out the barbed wire and no one bleeds, I call shenanigans. They don't go around saying women should not bleed. Oh, fuck off. We also had Darby Allin defeating Anthony Bowens in just a fine little match. It was a lot of fun. Cody Rhodes defeating Ethan Page as well, retaining his TNT title. And let's move on to Dynamite, because I think, look, my God, we've been spoiled, boys and girls, with some fantastic wrestling already in the very young year of our Lord. In the very, very young year of our Lord, 2021. And look, here's one thing. Here's a resolution that I gave for myself. I'm back to taking notes in a notebook, like going analog, old school. I was writing everything down, typing it out furiously in a Google Doc. I was like, no, and I pulled out the pen, and it feels natural, feels good. My notes are illegible. Like, you could never be able... Like, you think Tony Khan has bad handwriting. You've never seen Warren Hayes. The Noah Show, the New Year 2022. Keno versus Kiyomiya was absolute gold. What a fantastic match. Wrestle Kingdom had two particularly, I'd say three, high quality matches. Maybe, let's extend that to 4. And now, free TV on a Wednesday night... Hangman Adam Page retains his AEW World title successfully against Bryan Danielson in their second encounter, which was absolutely extraordinary. We are so spoiled with good wrestling. This match here, the story here was very simple. Adam Page did not want to go to time. Bryan Danielson was like, yeah, let's bring this to time. Two guys who were ready to wrestle two very, very different matches. Because Page, off the bat, goes in hard. Danielson, he's being evasive. He's comfortable with going the distance. He's still doing his fucking jumping jack spot. And he's pointing his stuff to the refs, right? He's going, hey, did you notice my great technique here? That kind of shit. The judges, by the way, Mark Henry, Jerry Lynn, Paul White. I'm going to tell you, as an aside here, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it was just these guys. We know who these guys are. I want the point of the judges. I don't care who you put in as a judge. I need to know what the judges are for. At this point, this is the second match, right? In AEW history where it's like, judges. I'm like, cool. What is this going to bring to the match? Turns out, nothing. 2 times in a row. So what AEW needs to do now is either create a match where a judge's decision will have the impact so that we can have like an anticipation for a next time where it's like, oh, this happened last time the judge's decision came into play. What's going to happen in this match that's scheduled with this stipulation? Because right now, if the next time they announce, oh, judges, I'll be like, oh, okay, I don't care. Like, it's a boring stip. There's nothing, it doesn't add anything to the match. You know, even when they had set it up a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, are they going to time again with this? Because why other would you put the judges in? No, there was no reason. There was just no reason for it to happen. So I'm like, okay, well, next time. So it's either next time have the judges influence the outcome of the match, or just don't do it. Just don't do it anymore. Or here's a third option: do a UWF style rules, where holds score points and, take down score points and that kind of shit. That could be fun. That would be very different for a North American audience and would justify the presence of judges. And that's what I thought they were going to do. Quite honestly. Back to the match, though. Paige tries to get after Danielson. Danielson is like, nah, screw you, man. But when Paige connects, he's going for the power stuff, right? He does a dive. He does a power bomb on the floor. Then there's this moment where he does another dive. Danielson moves out of the way. Paige runs into the guardrail, hurts his arm, and Danielson works the arm for the rest of the match, which is exactly what Daniel Bryan should be doing because he wants to render inefficient the buckshot lariat, right? There's great stuff all along. Paige hits his pescado. Danielson sends him into the stairs. Paige blades. Danielson starts getting real vicious, working the arm. They do the over the top rope suplex tumble. Where they both like, we're in a suplex machine. When they land before they land on their feet, and Danielson rams Paige into the post. But then Paige goes all Nigel McGuinness on Bryan Danielson and rams him into the post, and boy, oh boy, Danielson blades, and he bleeds so fucking much. I'm sure y'all were stunned, right? Guys, gals, non-binary pals, I can't be wrong here. Even the ringside staff were like, oh, we should patch you up. And he was like, no, I don't know how much that was of a shoot or not. So we should, he was like, no. It was amazing. We get an avalanche rolling body slam from Paige, a dead eye on the floor. He goes for the buckshot lariat, but Danielson just collapses. Because this match was brutal. Brutal. They just ran into each other. They hit each other with everything they had. Fantastic stuff. Just fantastic stuff. There's a Gotch-style pile driver as well. Danielson, he locks in the label lock beautifully. He's got it in the whole thing with the mouth and everything is perfect and on point. And Danielson, like I said, the Gotch-style, he's trying every finisher he's used over the past month and a half to try and put Paige away, and Paige, he can't. He just can't. It's Paige's night, who finally ends the match with the buckshot lariat. Fantastic, brutal, just wrestling like I like it. No shit, no shenanigans, no fucking House of Torture doing bullshit outside of the ring. Just beautiful stuff. The shit that makes you believe. You still know they're looking out for each other, right? You still know that, but it makes you believe. Already, man, what a fucking trip. Anyone who keeps this on their match of the year list for 2022, I won't even be mad. TBS title tournament finals happened as well. Jade Cargill is your first TBS champion. Congratulations to her. A fantastic moment. I just want to point out I was right. I was right. The whole way through this entire tournament, it was booked by MrWarrenHayes. I batted 1,000. Didn't get a single solitary thing wrong. And people were like, "Oh no, Thunder Rosa Warren, you are such a dummy dum-dums." I'm like, y'all aren't paying attention. Anyone who didn't pick Jade at the top of the bracket hasn't been paying attention to the last 8 to 9 months of booking in AEW. Hasn't been paying attention to how she was being booked during the tournament, during and on the side. The weeks that she wasn't in the tournament, what was AEW doing? They were giving her squash matches. I didn't know what to tell you. This was Jade's tournament to win. And that's what happened. But I got it all right. Yes, and her daughter was so happy. How could that? You'd have to be like the perfect the perfect miserable human being to just sit there and Cargill. Now I understand. Let's go through. I understand though that maybe some people are a little underwhelmed. I am. I'm happy for Jade for all the reasons that I keep mentioning week after week here. I'm happy for Jade, but I'm not like, I can't sit here in good faith and say, what a match. This is a fun match, you guys. I can't do that. Because the match wasn't that great. It really wasn't. I do feel people are going a little too hard on it, but I can't go the opposite and completely flip and say this was fantastic. You know, I saw some people saying this is Jade's best match to date. And I still think her first singles match with Red Velvet was much better than this. Jade uses the fact that Ruby fell on the floor and hurt her shoulder to work it over with hammer locks and knees. There's a clean as hell shoulder breaker that she pulls off. Like, the psychology is there. And you're like, okay, this makes sense. And she's working it properly. It looked convincing. Like, I was like, this is good stuff. She even hit her bitchsicle kick. I'm calling it that. I don't care. If they ever start trademarking it, if they ever start using it, you guys will know that I originated the bitchsicle kick for Jade. Ruby hits a Saito suplex, hits the no future. Jade kicks out. However, and that at that point, I think writing was on the wall. It's like, okay, she's kicking out of the finisher. We're good here. There's the top rope Jaded, or at least that's what everyone thought that they were doing. You know, she tried to go up onto the top rope. She clearly called an audible to Ruby, going like, nah, I can't do this. So they did it from the second rope instead. But again, I didn't think it looked great. I think it looked a little messy, a little rough, but that's because they did something on the fly that didn't quite work out because the person who was attempting the move wasn't comfortable, and everyone made sure that they were safe. So I can appreciate that. But objectively, you look at the movie and you're like, what was that? It really didn't look great. But moving on. Jade still got the win. And there's nothing wrong, for all the criticism that I have for Jade, which I hope everyone understands that they are very, very, that they come from a place of love, because I do want Jade to succeed. There's nothing wrong with a company banking on star power to push someone. There's nothing wrong with that. If they see money in Jade Cargill and they want to make money with her, go right ahead. That's what you should do. You should push her. Does she have the work rate? No. No, she doesn't. Were her matches good during the tournament? like I said, I still think her best match was her first singles match, the one against Red Velvet. I still think that's her go-to. I just want Jade. I want Jade to improve, right? She's tossed into a very, very difficult position right now in an environment where fans nowadays expect high work rate from their champions. I mean, this is a reality today, right? That this is what they expect. I don't think we've seen Jade Cargill's ceiling. I honestly do not. I think that the only way she will continue to improve is to be on TV and wrestle TV matches. She has to wrestle more than squash matches, though, because I think that has been part of what has hurt her ultimately. She started wrestling longer matches, and I think unfortunately it exposed more of her weaknesses than anything else. I think she will improve. Because she has too much talent. You can see just the way she was working Ruby's arm. I was like, she gets it. She understands how this is supposed to work, how it's supposed to look, and she's making it. She's making the connections. It's working. But she's not. She's being thrust in a position of in a spotlight that I feel is maybe a little unjust at this point. The expectations are unjust towards her because of the expectations you have when carrying a title. And I think this is a testament to what modern day fans, especially AEW fans, are looking for. They want people who can work. That's what they want. They don't want Goldbergs anymore. They don't want Rybacks anymore. You know, they want people who can go 10, 12, 15 minutes and put on a compelling story. I still think Jade's biggest, if Jade can overcome the hurdle of stringing things together so she can tell a good story in a match, I think that'll be half the battle won right there. I think we saw very, very telling and promising glimpses of that in her match last night, again, deciding to work the shoulder. Now, you can sit down here and say, but it's such a basic storytelling technique, Warren. Yeah, but who cares? She's trying to tell a story and she's doing good. She's doing well. And that's all that matters, really. And I'm not even going to address the rest of the bullshit because there's a lot of bullshit about her, which is unjust and stupid. And if you had been following, because look, okay, in a nutshell, people saying, oh, because of Tony Khan's tweet, he had to give it to a black person to sort of deflect the tweet. If anyone had been watching this tournament, they wouldn't be saying that shit. She had been booked to win this tournament from the get-go. And it'd been every week they'd prove it. Like, every week they'd lean in harder and harder on Jade. Like, she's winning. And anyone who wants to make this about Tony Khan giving it to a black person, you're outing yourself and you're wrong. And that wasn't the only title change or new title holders that we would get during that evening. Dino 210 defeated the Lucha Bros to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. Fun little PWG-esque spot with the arm drags at some point early on in the match. Phoenix does his running rope walk kick, which is absolutely amazing. Jungle Boy hits an awesome diving destroyer on Phoenix. What great stuff. Penta lays out fools with made in Japans everywhere. Shout out to Shingo. The Lucha Bros hit the combination Fear Factor top rope stomp, but Jungle Boy kicks out of it. And that's a thing. Alex Abrahante sets up a table on the outside, and Rey Fenix is like, "What are you doing? Don't do that." He goes, "No. And in retrospect, you're like, oh boy, was this ever some foreshadowing, right? Because Luchasaurus choke slams Rey Fenix off the apron through the table, but Rey Fenix, unfortunately, his left arm sort of twists in a very unfortunate way, in one of the most gruesome limb twists that you'll ever see on television. Something that you just don't want to see ever again in your entire life. That was awful. He was injured out for the rest of the match. So the ending felt a little rushed. It was like, okay, what's going on? But Phoenix was completely out. His arm wasn't good. Apparently it's just a bad dislocation though. That's what Rey Fenix told fans on his Twitter today, which is good news because a dislocation is much easier to rehabilitate than a break, which was what a lot of people were worried about. But anyway, in the meantime, Jungle Boy rolls out of a Made in Japan from Penta for the win. And it's about fucking time. Because here's the thing is that Jurassic Express has always been one of the most over acts in the company. Ever since it started, ever since the company started, it's been one of the consistently most over acts in all of AEW. It's about time they get some gold. It's about time they put some gold on Jungle Boy, who has been a top tier company guy, doing everything required of him, getting the big matches, but always coming up a little short. This is good. And if anything, this should be marked as a catalyst for Jungle Boy to sort of be like, getting some confidence and be like, all right, put me in some singles matches on top of that, and then starts winning big singles matches on top of that as well. I think it'd be great. If this was the moment where sort of Jungle Boy starts to transition, as a lot of us seem to think that the day he drops the Jungle Boy moniker and becomes like Jungle Jack Perry, that'll probably be like the moment where he really gets his push. Maybe this is what we use to sort of transition into that. I'm not saying he's going to do it next week. AEW is a fan of long-term storytelling, and I super appreciate that. So it could take a while. It could take a while, but let's at least start. Let's at least get to it, right? I'm very good times and a good strong finish. Congratulations to Dino 210 Jurassic Express. I'm glad the chat popped. I love calling him Dino 210. It's fantastic. Marco Dominguez, good to see you. Welcome to the chat. Other things that happened on the card, we had Shawn Dean defeating MJF. And that's something that will be inscribed into the marble tablets of professional wrestling history forever. Shawn Dean defeated MJF in 47 seconds. All right? If you didn't see the thing, Shawn Dean was supposed to fight MJF. The bell rings, CM Punk runs in. So since CM Punk arrives, MJF being the chicken shit that he is, he hits the bricks. And Punk attacks Shawn Dean, hits the GTS to force the DQ. And he's like, oh, so much for your world title aspirations starting the year with a loss kind of thing. And it's like, that means 3 people in AEW hold a win over MJF. Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, Captain Shawn Dean. How about that? So MJF starts off the year with the losing record, and then they do the microphone things at each other again. However, this was not the first DQ. I know Pac did one on Kenny Omega 2 years ago, but it's not the DQs. It's a big moment because DQs are so rare in AEW. I think this is like the second or third. I've seen people talk about 3, but I can't quite remember what the third one is. But it seems to me that Pac forced a DQ on Kenny Omega. It's not the first. I'm convinced it's not. Anyway, back to MJF and CM Punk going at each other on the mics. The one line, you guys know how I feel at this point about them just trading barbs with each other. It's like, just do. There's one line that I really liked when MJF talks about CM Punk comparing himself to Roddy Piper, doing comparisons to Roddy Piper, and he said, and MJF says, at least Roddy Piper had enough talent to main event a WrestleMania, which everyone went, ooh. And then MJF said, and if I don't get enough respect around here, I might just go main event to WrestleMania, which made me pop. I was like, oh shit, okay, I like that. But CM Punk pushed it over where he said, and I quote, if you think the grass is so greener on the other side, be my guest. Go ahead, leave main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza. And I'm like, if anything, this entire talkity talk feud, if it led to this line here, I'm good. I'm okay. I think it's peaked at this point. I don't think it'll get any better than this. Great stuff. Also on the card, we had Malachi Black defeating Brian Pillman Jr., which is, a thing. And Wardlow, of course, continues his reign of domination, defeating Antonio Zambrano. Sean Spears got involved and Wardlow wasn't happy. So that's kind of the story here. And we also had the Jericho 2.0 confrontation. I'm sorry, guys. And Jericho was on my naughty list show a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? Christ, time flies. He's corny, it's not working, and he's trying really hard to he's forcing the squarehead pinhead stuff a little too much. Terrence and Phillip, I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, this isn't 1997 where people went to WWE shows with their Eric Cartman dolls anymore. It's I don't know. Chris Jericho's not off to a rousing start. But you know what? This whole feud, as much as I love Daniel Garcia, 2.0, Eddie Kingston, all of this happening right now, it's not working. It's messy. It's all over the place. I don't feel someone needs to take some direction here, because I feel everyone wants a little bit of everything, and Jericho's trying to get shit over, and he's, oh yeah. Anakin JMT left us a super chat. Thank you, Anakin. Again, appreciate it. He says, don't forget after the buy one, get one free extravaganza line, Punk said, and then get released faster than you last in the sack. Well, I don't know how, see, that's the things, like, I don't know how he's privy to that information about MJF. That kind of leaves me, my journalistic instincts, as low as they are, get really perk up, and it's like, how does he know? Oh, and really quickly, just before we wrap things up, Wrestle Kingdom happened this week, nights 1 and 2. I did say I was going to talk about it briefly. Look, if you want my full, complete thoughts on the show, along with Lord Magsy, who was there to entertain y'all, go check out nights 1 and 2. Our live post shows that we recorded right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. But on general thoughts, very uneven show. Night 1 was a bit of a slog to get through. I don't think it was that great. Poor undercard. Top 2 matches, high quality, high caliber, wonderful matches. Great stuff. Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado, and Shingo Takagi versus Kazuchika Okada, both for titles. Fantastic stuff, like from top to bottom. for those two matches. Great performances by all four of those guys. But otherwise, just really a slog. I don't think night one was very good. Night two, very good watch. It's as if it was booked by an entirely different person. From the mid card, from the lower card, opening up with titles that I don't give a shit about. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. I don't give a shit about the junior tag titles in New Japan. The match was fun. Was super fun. Stardom had their showcase match, which was brilliant. Even the King of Pro Wrestling match was a nice diversion. And then we got that awesome no disqualification match between Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kenta, where Kenta's face exploded when he fell from the top of a 15-foot ladder. And I'm not shitting you. I'm not making this up. I'm not going for grandeur here. It was a 15-fucking-foot ladder that he fell off of onto an aluminum trash can that was in the ring, and his face exploded. There's blood the fuck everywhere. Finished the match. Hiroshi Tanahashi doing dives off of that fucking ladder. Like, wild shit. Good match. Good DQ. Good progression. Fantastic stuff. And in the main event, Kazuchika Okada, who won the IWGP World Heavyweight title off of Shingo Takagi the night before, defeated Will Ospreay on night two, and it was just brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Best match I've seen this year to date. I think it's one of the best matches I may have seen, period. Gave me all the feels. Just extraordinary stuff. And a match that you didn't realize. Like, at some point, there's so much. You should check out my review, because at some point, I'm going through the movesets and I'm talking to Mags about it. I'm like, look at all the shit we just talked about, and we're not even 15 minutes into the match yet. Just amazing stuff. So if you did want to, and I'm going to go on top of that. That match, Okada, Will Ospreay, Wrestle Kingdom 16 Night 2, it is a must watch. If you're a wrestling fan, take it from me. This is one that you make time out of your day. You find a way to get your hands on it, and you sit down and you enjoy it. 32 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. Well spent. Trust me. And you're not going to be bored. What an amazing fucking match it was. And another thing that Wrestle Kingdom did really good, I found this year, was set up their juniors division, which has been lacking a little bit, because usually they like to bring in people from the outside and so on and so forth, and it's not. But they did really, really well, establishing Yo as a formerly from Roppongi 3K, of course, Yo as a serious contender. El Desperado defeating Hiromu Takahashi, who was, for all intents and purposes, the star of the junior division. Desperado defeating Hiromu on night one is a big fucking deal, and that helps establish El Desperado even more. Then we had on the undercard of night two, El Desperado got pinned in a multi-man match by Master Wato, and now everyone's like, holy shit, Master Wato getting... So there's a lot of good stuff coming out of the juniors division, which is really interesting. I did see some complaints. I did see people going like, oh, of course Okada wins the title. Of course Tanahashi wins the title, because the new DQ match was for the IWGP US title. So of course they put the strap back on Tanahashi. Oh, Naito's the first challenger for the title. Of course, everyone's going, they're not building new people. Here's the thing. 2021 for New Japan was a shit year. It was a bad, snake-bitten year for the company, both in-ring, logistically, and I am convinced financially. We're going to get their financial reports over the next couple of weeks. I'm convinced that 2021 was not a financially solid year for New Japan. I'm convinced they lost subscribers on New Japan World. Gates were not even close to what they were expecting. COVID railroaded so many matches and so many main events, injuries from Will Ospreay, Okada got COVID, Ibushi's still injured. Like, just a snake-bitten year. I have no issues at all that for their 50th year, their 50th anniversary, I have no problem. And it makes even a lot of sense that New Japan would go back to the old standards. Put the title on Okada. Put the title on Tanahashi. Get Naito back into the mix. All super popular wrestlers. I would not be surprised at all if they re-roll Tanahashi Okada as a feud this year, as a program. I wouldn't be surprised. And I can't say that they'll be wrong to do it because they need the draws this year. And this is not to shit on Shingo, who carried the belt for most of the year last year, and said Shingo's not a draw. There were too many outside factors to sit down and go and pull out your notes and be like, well, if you consider these gates as opposed to the years previous, Shingo's not a draw. Too many factors that keep any sane person from saying whether Shingo Takagi's a draw or not. But Kazuchika Okada, proven draw. Hiroshi Tanahashi. I have Hiromu on the brain. Hiroshi Tanahashi, proven draw. These guys are proven draw. Tetsuya Naito, proven draw. Why not go full force with your guys, with your top guys, the guys who can drain people, sell merch? Go for it. Absolutely. Because the COVID situation doesn't seem to be getting better anywhere in the world. It's not getting better in Japan. They're still doing half capacity shows with the clap crowds and no one say a word. You can't scream or whatever. At some point, you really start hoping that things are going to get better for them. I think they're taking matters into their own hands. They took a couple of risks in 2021, which I appreciate. Will Ospreay, Ibushi, Shingo, all at the top. Different, fresh. I think for 2022, 50th anniversary, probably need to get some of that green back into the coffers. I think it's a safe bet. I think New Japan is going to play very, very safe this year, and I don't blame them. I really don't. And I don't blame me wrapping up the weekly wrestling inspection. So next week, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be breaking down my list, my top 10 matches of the year, as well as my wrestlers of the year on top of that. Are you excited for that? It doesn't really matter because I'm doing it anyway. Because it's fun. I think it'd be a good time to do it. I think we were kind of spoiled when it comes to great matches in 2021. So I think I'm going to take some time to chat about that next week. So I hope you guys come back. I hope you guys are. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out this evening. I really appreciate it. If you were here live, thank you so much. Consider giving a like before leaving. Little subscription, that'd be great. Or if you're watching this on demand, same thing. A little like before leaving, little subscription. Or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, thank you. Rate, review, all that kind of stuff. It does help a ton. Thank you so much. 2022, man, is off to a fantastic start, as far as wrestling goes anyway. And I hope you guys are along for the ride this year. Again, with more of me and my nonsense. Thank you all for hanging out this evening. I hope you have a great weekend. And you know what? We'll see you next time.